We are live. What's happening, everybody?
Good evening, Spray Wash.
Hope everybody's doing well. Doug is here live in studio with me in Tallahassee, Florida, and we have an amazingly special guest, a very dear old friend of mine. Old as in, he's not old, but I've known him for a long time. But Mr. Nick Hopkins, how are you, Nick?
I'm great, Ray, and thanks for the invite. And g'day, Doug.
Hey there. Been a long time. When was the last time I saw you? It was.
Yeah, it would have been probably UAMCC down in.
Probably no, Paul. That would have been. Paul had you keynote at the
Branson.
Yep.
Was it Branson?
It was Branson, wasn't it?
No, it was down in Florida for his vendor showcase.
Yeah, for the vendor showcase 2 or 3 years. 3 years ago, probably.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah. Yep. So that's it.
Just before the world fell in a hole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it was
that it hadn't crawled out of yet.
2020, they canceled the vendor showcase, and 2021.
He's doing another one. Yeah, he's got one down there.
Wait, no. 2021, they canceled it. We made it 2020.
We didn't make it in 2020.
So is it 2 years it got canceled? Yeah. No, we made it in 2020. Yeah, in 2020 we made it. 2021 was canceled. Yep. So this has been the longest year. 2021 has been 2022. Is next coming up next month, and we're doing it again. So this will actually be the 5th time that we've done the vendor showcase. First year was in Tampa, and then subsequently in Orlando. And we're seeing, looks like Miss Tanya is joining. Oh, we've got a somebody saying hello, Tanya. So what happens here, everybody? Just Tommy was the first one there. John Sacco is saying hello. So I get what up, fellas. So if you haven't registered, it'll say Facebook user. I don't know who that is, but then we're fancy themselves footies. Jacob didn't know what a footie was until I told him either. So what's up, Wild West? So somebody says, hello, Tanya Burke. So now we know that we have a hall monitor out here. We just don't know that it's Tanya. So we have to behave ourselves.
There you go.
Jacob, Doug's hair looks rather amazing tonight. Raymond's
always looks amazing. Nick's hair looks amazing.
Yep. Ray's hair, not so much. I actually went shooting with Brooke yesterday at the range, and she sent me a picture, and I was like, oh, no, that just can't be right. Who's the bald guy at our gun range? So, all right. So that must be. I'm guessing that's Tanya. That looks like her little emoji. We got a hey Flip. What's happening? Hope you're doing well, Alan. All right. We got us a few people going on. So Nick, tell us what's going on in your world.
Well, apart from the obvious, which has been everything from cities in lockdown for extended periods of time to areas where I live, where largely our life has been somewhat unaffected for the most part. We've had our different journeys here in Australia, obviously, with the pandemic and how that's, affected business and the way that, obviously the government initially responded. Which was really very good. And then, of course, the thing drags on. So they've got to review that, and everybody then starts thinking about how deep the hole gets with the money and how long it's going to take to get out of it. And they reviewed all of that. But we've seen, not unlike what we're seeing in America, house prices are off the chart. Getting stock or equipment or anything has become really difficult. We're starting to see those underlying pressures of inflation really starting to happen, and things are moving price-wise. The staple foods like bread, milk, cheese, fuel, rent, and all those other things are really starting to move up. But there's been no real movement on wages, and what they're terming that stagflation. So a stagnant wages and inflation on the other hand, and that's what we're seeing here in Australia, and I think you'll be seeing that probably stateside.
Oh, we're definitely seeing the inflation part of it. I would say the wages part is our government gave out so much money to people, and I think it impacted the labor market so much that a lot of people decided to not come back, have found different government programs, or have just said, screw it, I'm going to do gig work. And decided we're having a massive problem with employees here, which has actually caused our labor rates to go through the roof. I mean, jobs we were getting done for, $14, $15 an hour. Now we're having to hire technicians at $18, $19 an hour to start on. So
I would even go so far as to say that before the pandemic happened, we were already having an issue with labor. And I think it's a generational thing partly. And so we were already having a problem. And then you throw the pandemic on top of it, and, the way that the government, is throwing money away, and, it made it a lot more difficult to hire here.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the lockdown, and we have a saying here, the longest, the longest part about the 2 weeks to stop the spread is the next 18 months of it. And it's, we're seeing now with this new, was Omicron variant, we just don't, we kind of brace ourselves going, okay, what's going to happen next? Because there's certainly, I don't know if Australia is politically divided as America is, but you have, half the people in America are saying, well, this is really just a ploy to exert government control on them. The way we're holding this up and threatening lockdowns again. In some ways it may be right, in some ways it's not, because that main scientist in South Africa who discovered the Omicron said, hey, this is a different thing, and it's really not that bad. It's not really just, and I'm not trying to turn this into a political, discussion, because nobody's ever going to win on that. But, it's real interesting, and Adam Mosley just commented, thank God we live in Florida. And absolutely, we've got a very conservative governor. In fact, a lot of people are hoping he'll run for president. And he really, he kept Florida open. And our numbers were a lot better than the states that had the massive lockdowns and shutdowns in a lot of ways.
And that's something that I don't think David being looked at correctly, where you sit there. Again, this is going into the political side of it, but where you can have a state like Florida without the lockdown having less, people affected than the places that have locked. It doesn't make any sense. So,
yeah.
So this is a great comment. Kind of funny. These two unemployed fellows are talking about America not being able to find.
That's very good.
We are the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a microphone.
Oh, let's go, Brandon. Governor who? DeSantis.
David's winning so far. That's all there is to say. Look, just touching on that. I think, there seemed to be a bit of media, social media, and even stuff in the news there a little while back about, Australia was arresting children and tying up families and, all sorts of stuff that was, look, I think the narrative can be told 1,000 ways, and they say a picture tells 1,000 words. And then, of course, if you've got the right narrative behind it, well, you're going to listen to what has been said. And but I think to understand a little bit what the Australian generally is about, we're generally really lazy people, right? If your name's Thompson, you get called Tomo. If you're going to have breakfast, you're going to have brekkie. So we're so lazy we don't even finish words.
Right.
Now, when someone comes along and says, look, here's your options, right? You can do this, or you can take that and go to the pub. Everyone says, yeah, okay, let me take that. I'm going to the pub. And that's largely what sort of goes on in Australia. Now, there's an element of the sector who are invested in and probably care a little more and obviously have done their homework. And that's on both sides of the fence, whether it's pro or anti-vaccination or pro or anti the the actual virus or what have you. But the middle 80%, we're all pretty lazy, and all we want to do is try and find the fastest way to the pub. So having said that, don't worry about us down here. We're all okay. We are busy. The market here is incredibly busy. And just moving on from that, the segue here, I suppose, is to talk a little bit, about what's really happening in the market in Australia.
And also, for those of you who don't understand, you guys are now in your summer season right now, right?
Starting to come into our summer. Southern Hemisphere is obviously the summer months around Christmas. So while you're enjoying a nice, roast turkey, Christmas Day, it's cold, the fire's on. It's about 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Every man and his dog's sweating, but guess what? We're still having roast turkey. So we're not real smart either, I suppose. All that says. But the market's here really busy, and if we wind the clock back to, I think, when I met you, Ray, that was sort of 2015-ish.
Right.
I started an exterior cleaning business in 2013, having come out of 20-odd years in the scrap metal industry, having owned my own business. And I had a partnership with a guy, and he had big ambitions to pursue that business and make it bigger. And we'd been through the global financial crisis, and I was exhausted. I was tired. I was frustrated, and I was a bit sort of wanting to double down and put every single thing that I had on the line in a market that I just sort of felt I no longer really understood. So I was reluctant to, and as a consequence, that meant that I had to make room in the business for him to be able to go forward, and I took a handshake and a nice check, and I moved on.
Right.
And then 18 months after that, I decided that I would start an exterior cleaning business. And 6 months on from that, having started a pressure wash business with a pure water system as well to detail windows and do largely what we would call builder's cleans. So on the final construction, someone's got to go in and clean the tiled areas and pressure wash the car park and wash all the windows and knock the dust off everything. That was really where I pitched the business, and I was fortunate enough to pick up a couple of nice contracts. But every time I looked at trying to wash an exterior surface that was sort of larger than one story, I kept coming up with, my God, I've got to get that extended lance pole thing out and an X-jet. And this is really hard work, and it physically knocks the edge off you very quickly.
Right.
And so I, down the YouTube rabbit hole. Unfortunately, there was YouTube because, wind the clock back now 7 years or 8 years, there was no Spray Wash Academy sitting here on a Monday night talking about what's out there. There was nothing. There was the National SoftWash Association, I think. Which was a bit of a chat board sort of a thing. And I think that's where I first saw your name. And then subsequent to that, a little while later, I conjured up the courage to give you a ring. I think it was my Saturday morning about 6 o'clock in the morning, and your Friday night, you were just knocking the top off your first stub of your beer. And
yes, sir.
And we had a conversation, and I basically invited myself to come and meet you and have a look at what you were doing. And
I've actually rehearsed our conversation. It went something like this. G'day, mate. Nick Hopkins, Gold Coast, Australia. Been watching your videos there on the old YouTube, and we're starting to try to figure out this whole SoftWash thing and thinking about popping around there and seeing you, mate. Is that okay for you in about a month? Absolutely. Sounds great. And I thought, I just had this crazy guy with a really cool accent, And then next thing I know, a month later, you and your beautiful wife are here, in Tallahassee, and started a fantastic friendship. And we talked about soft washing, got some hands-on on that, and you built just an amazing business after that. So it was kind of cool.
And I got to throw in the third party part of that, because I heard the story too, and it was like Ray calls me up one day and he says, "You're not going to believe this." So last month I get this call from this guy who says he's in Australia and he's going to come over here, and guess what? He's coming. He said some other choice things about it.
Yeah. But then the absolute best part is, because I thought this was going to be just this random encounter, and because I really, honestly, every day, Doug and I both get calls from guys that are like, hey, blah, 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 we're going to do this, we're going to do that. That never comes to fruition. Well, so now all of a sudden you have actually made the airfare, you've made the reservations, you're coming. There was one little thing that I kind of forgot during this whole discussion, and it was to tell my wife. So we were literally sitting at lunch or dinner, and I was like, and she said, she'll never forget, but my eyes went like really big, and I was like, she's like, what? I know that look. What? And I was like, I just remembered, I kind of forgot to tell you that we're having guests next week in 3 days or so. And she's like, guests? What do you mean? I was like, well, some folks, I've talked to them, and they're coming from Australia. And she's like, oh my God, what the hell are you talking? I was like, well, he's going to shadow me. She's going to shadow you. And she's like, I can't believe you didn't tell me this. And you're just a horrible person. And so, yeah.
I remember Tanya saying at the time that she was going to feign having a wisdom tooth out.
Yeah. Root canal.
And if we turned up and happened to be people that she just couldn't tolerate.
Yep.
She was going to go, nah, I've got to go to the dentist and have this wisdom tooth out, and I'm out for the weekend. Ray, it's on you.
Yeah.
And I thought,
she's going to go hide out in a hotel.
We worked her out pretty quick. She knows exactly what's
she
actually,
she said, she's like, oh my God, they're just like us, but with a lot cooler accents.
Well, I don't know about that. No one here in Australia's got an accent.
Yeah, but there's people in America, all of them have, don't they?
Yeah.
So
John.
Go ahead. Good. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. So down the track from all of that, and to some degree, I think if you think back about that concept of the fact that someone's prepared to hop in an airplane and fly across the world because you've got something to offer, I mean that in some ways played in part into where SoftWash Academy's even come from. Yeah. That ability to be able to recognize that and say, we've got something of value here and it is worth sharing. And I think that's flowed on. And obviously, your time shared with a couple of other organisations or associations, and then the motivation to want to do something yourself. And that's all well and good to have all the motivation, but it's not going to happen unless you're the guy that can actually make it happen. And you've proven that you've been able to make it happen. And of course, Doug's pedigree and the fact that he's been able to not only, operate in the industry and create all those facets that you need to create when you're talking about, building a home service or an exterior cleaning or whatever you want to call it, business, but also then go on to be able to build that to a point where it's of interest to somebody else, then ultimately be able to sell that business as a going concern and a tangible operation that's got value.
Yep.
And I think that's something that all three of us now share. I've only recently sold my exterior cleaning business.
And that's one of the things I wanted to kind of segue into. So, Doug started this thing, he sold, then Tanya and I sold, and so you have most recently sold your business too. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Well, out of my exterior cleaning business called Excess Cleaning, grew a bit of what I think Carlos would call it a side hustle.
Right.
So it started as a side hustle, and it sort of pretty quickly took a bit of a meaning of its own, and it got its own life. And a couple of years ago, it transitioned out of my garage into a shed of its own, and we were able to house both businesses in the shed. And I gave maybe a few hours a day to SoftWash Australia, and the other time was really dedicated to running Excess Cleaning, not being as hands-on in the business as I've been, and employing some guys and getting them trained up, and then maintaining some contracts that we were able to secure, and also just really servicing a really nice group of clients that used us fairly regularly. And obviously, using general marketing, web page, Facebook, door knocking, phone calling, person to person, chatting, seeking people out who maybe had opportunities, and turning excess cleaning into that business that I wanted to have, which somewhat emulated what you'd done with spray wash. And it was very similar in that we did that sort of commercial exterior facade wash really well. We did a bit of commercial flat work, but it wasn't really the big area of our work. We did have a contract with Toyota Australia, the large, Toyota dealerships. So we had 85 dealerships in Queensland and about 6 dealerships in the Northern Territory that we serviced annually, with going and cleaning all of their livery, all the signage and the fascias and the wording and the lettering, and pulling the faces off and cleaning the backlights so that the LEDs work properly, and all those sorts of things. So that was a really handsome contract to have, and it was about I suppose about a quarter, if not a third, of our turnover, and that was a really good thing to underwrite the value of the wages, I suppose, to some degree. And then obviously the rest of it became cream on the cake, and we built the business up. But at some point, you just can't be a slave to two masters.
Yeah,
it's too hard, and
it really is.
And the amount of sort of risk, effort, the demands from your cash flow, and those sorts of things that are required to run the exterior cleaning business, when I compared them to the, if you like, simplicity of running a distribution business or a wholesaling business,
right?
It's apples with apples. Sorry, it was chalk and cheese. It was totally opposite.
Right. But the part of that in everything that you said too, that makes sense to me. When you look at everything and you're talking about, the growth of spray wash and all, Ray and I both, and I'm sure you probably, we get calls all the time, and there's a lot of calls that we get one time and then we never hear from the person again. And the difference here in you taking your company and Ray taking his company and me taking my company to that next level is we acted. So like you're like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. And you not only said, I'm going to commit to this, I'm going to get on a freaking plane in Australia and I'm going to fly to Tallahassee, Florida, and I'm going to get some training from it. And it wasn't like Ray said, it wasn't hey man, can I please come up and, see you and visit you? You're like, dude, I'm coming in a month, and what can we do, kind of a thing. So a lot of people today, they rely too much on this Facebook crap. And, they're trying to get all their answers right here online instead of getting off of their butts and actually doing something and making it happen. It's not a hard business to grow. It's really not. It just takes some dedication. It takes some elbow grease. It takes some forward momentum. That's it.
Yeah, that $200,000 a truck number should be very obtainable to anybody within 2 years at this stage of life. You should be able to get up there. A minimum of $150,000 a truck.
As long as that's what you want.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You have to want that. I mean, and Nick, you and I, we were kind of pre-gaming earlier. We were talking about this, that so many people, we see them on these groups, and they're like, oh, well, I was talking to another friend as well, and it's like, I see it all the time. Oh, well, he must have got that job because he was the low baller. Oh, he must have got that job because he underbid everything. Oh, he's working for Walmart because he's willing to work for $200, to clean the front of that store. And usually it's quite the opposite. Absolutely. No, actually Walmart pays really well, and he might be getting more than what you bid on that because he had a relationship with the guy. And whereas you're wanting to sit around here and argue about what hose is better, Flexilla or Goodyear, we're spending our time building relationships with these property managers and business owners and going to networking meetings and actually working on our business instead of doing this mental masturbation about, well, I like a 25-15 tip a lot better than a 25-20 tip.
A lot of things that people don't even realize too, on some of these, and mostly on the larger ones, you might get a contract, and that contract is for $100,000, and you have to do these 15 locations, right? And so it might look like they're doing that location for $200 and it's really big. Okay, but that's one location that's really big. The rest of them are really small, and they're all the same price. It doesn't matter, you know.
I have learned over time it serves no purpose at all to, you know, you're not in competition with the guy up the road and what he's doing.
Yeah,
you're running a commercial enterprise. You're not running a competition.
Mm-hmm.
Tanya said that exactly same thing only the other night when I was talking to her. And I was so impressed by what she said that, you know, we seem to have this competitive nature. We all do. It's part of the beast. More often than not, if you're on social media and you're posting wonderful pictures of the roof you cleaned today and how good you're going and your method and your soap, that's great. It's awesome that people share. They never used to. Facebook, in actual fact, has been a phenomenon in that it's actually taught people to share freely, and they do that. And that didn't happen for a long time, and now it does.
Yeah.
But you've got to sometimes stop and think, who's seeing this? Because if it's everyone else in the industry who's looking at your rig or looking at the roof you washed today, and they're all cheering and telling you, wow, wonderful, that's great. It makes you feel good. But there is zero monetary value in that for you because you're not selling to an audience, you're selling to the choir. And you don't want to be singing to the choir. You want to be singing to the audience because they're the ones who are going to buy a copy of the disc and walk out the door at the end of the show. And that's what you've got to be trying to get your mindset around. So it's pointless to, you know, I mean, it's great that people share, and I wouldn't have the business I've got if I hadn't have done the same thing. But I was always aware that I was singing to the choir. And so, you know, if you want to then sell to, you know, a market space that you think you have a service and they can take up, you've got to try and target that and focus on that and get it out there and drive it in that direction. I think that's pretty important.
Absolutely. So we have a question here. I got a couple comments. Rusty Lasker wants to know, Nick, what's the difference between Australia and New Zealand as related to the soft wash business?
Look, I think that New Zealand, from my understanding, has probably been soft washing as a technique a lot longer than traditionally we have here in Australia. And not only that, that they're more attuned to the use of, say, biocides, or a very famous product in New Zealand is called Wet and Forget, which is basically a benzoconium or benzoyl. Yeah, there it is. That's the one. The very one. So that product was developed there. It's been sold there an awful lot, and that biocide type treatment mentality has been being sold for a long time. That's
ironically, it actually even says, I was just looking at that, and it says right there in the red, developed in New Zealand, made in the USA under license. You know,
so,
I didn't realize that, but I was just noticing that. And you know, one of the irony, the reason I have this sitting here along with a lot of other chemicals is because we're doing a video in Spray Wash Pro about, you know, the different cleaners that are available over the counter. And ironically, active ingredient in this is one of the same things that we sanitize with.
That's exactly right.
Chemically, this is the same as, at least active ingredient wise, this is the same as the Agent Clean Sand Q, same stuff that's in there. And we've actually been using this benzyl alkyl ammonium chloride for years. Whenever someone says, hey, I don't want bleach, they're absolutely saying, I do not want bleach. I cannot have bleach on this property. You can spray a sanitizer such as this on there, and it will kill and knock down and soften up, but you're going to have to put a little pressure to it. I would say also,
you have to also have to
give it time. I would also say the biggest difference between the New Zealand and Australia markets is that New Zealand wasn't founded by criminals, correct?
No, I'm pretty sure that there was a penal colony there, or
was that a penal colony too? Okay.
Good British friends would have taken advantage of another island. I mean, what idiots are they? They sent all the criminals to a holiday resort, and look what we've done with it.
Exactly. You know, they just thought everything down there was going to kill you. You know, I mean, between the snakes, and the spiders, and the sharks. That
yeah,
yeah,
they don't carry guns. That's a good thing about them.
That's where the Americans will get you.
Yeah, you don't want to look on the table here.
Yeah, RPC takes a lot of cleaning. It's likes a lot of hard work. Pro Wash Missouri, how are you this evening? Somebody said, or Cabo. Hard work is never easy, but if you're hungry enough, you'll succeed.
Absolutely.
Amen. Stephen Button, so he agreed to us, and I think that's when we were talking about stop fussing about equipment and get out there and start, you know, meeting people and not complaining on, you know.
Yeah, if we go back to that comment you made about relationships, Ray, I really, one of the things that I learned in the scrap metal industry, and I was relaying this to you in the conversation we had recently, you know, that industry, we used to say in the industry that your relationship was worth 5 cents. And I'll clarify that. So the 5 cent story is that on a Monday, all of the large scrap metal people would release their pricing to all of their smaller dealer network or their customers on a Monday that would last for the week. Now, if your price for copper wire was $5.10 and the guy down the road's price was $5.20, you'd be guaranteed that the guy would just automatically take it down the road because 10 cents was further than the 5 cents that your relationship lasted. If you were at $5.15, it was a $5.20, you might get a phone call. And that phone call would allow you to either get another bite at the cherry, or you could negotiate that maybe there was a couple of other items you could help him out with, but we were a bit uncertain about where copper was going to be next week, so we might just stick with the $5.15 on the copper, but can we do something on some aluminium? And it was always about making sure the phone rang the second time.
Right.
The first time, they're always going to ring and get a price. The second time, you want that phone to ring the second time.
Right. Then they're just going to sell, hey, can I bring this by? And yeah.
And it's about developing a depth of relationship with all of your clientele, whether it be the guy that eats sandwiches at the tip or the guy who is the CEO of the biggest, you know, mining company in the country.
Right.
It doesn't matter. The relationship is just important. You know, and fostering and cultivating and working on those relationships are worth it, because that is what is going to keep your phone ringing and the work coming in. And, you know, the 80-20 rule, that 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your customers.
Exactly.
And it's really important that people have a good look and have a system, whether they use a back-end, you know, accounting package, or whether they use one of these CRMs or something like that. But being able to quickly go back and have a look and say, who spent the most money with me this year, and who are those top 20 clients?
Right.
Or, you know, or out of the 80 that I might have, or 10 that I might have, who are the top 2? Because they're the guys I really need to make sure I'm talking to, because they're going to give me 80% of my income.
And you know, and what you're talking, you know, in the 80-20 rule, it's also called the Pareto principle, the PARETO, and it's not something unique to the scrap business. It's not something unique to the washing business. It's literally a time honored held tradition that works in so many ways. It's you'll spend 20% of what you spend your time on will result in 80% of your income. And it just happens that way. And 20% of your customers will give you 80%. I mean, it's crazy how it works. And it goes, and also in any given industry, typically speaking, 20% of the people in any given industry do 80% of the work. It holds true in the washing industry. It holds true in the real estate industry. It holds true in hospitals. I mean, it's just that way, you know?
You know, that's the other thing that I don't think we actually even talk about it enough, that you brought it up, that, you know, you should absolutely know who your top clients are. You should know them by name. You should know them by You should know what their hangups are, what their problems are, you should absolutely
their
know
kids' birthdays, their pets' names, their what their likes, their dislikes, their hobbies, things like that.
You become literally, you can become friends with these people, and there is a difference, and there's a divide. You try to hold the friendship and the business, and you try to keep them at bay. But if you're doing it right, I think you end up making friendships with, real legitimate,
not just fake business friendships, but real friendships, real relationships,
I think it comes under one word, and that's respect.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think that and one of the things I've learned as I've got older that I didn't have as a younger man. As a younger man, I sat in front of people who were business operators. And even though I might have had all the confidence in the world and really known my subject matter or what I was talking about on a given day, I just didn't feel that sort of maturity and more relaxed state that I can have today. And I think it comes with age and now to be able to go out and do business with people and know that I'm not in this position of sort of pressure or intimidation or anything like that. It's really just a case of me being able to hopefully cultivate a relationship and have that respectfully backwards and forwards and put that person in exactly the same place as me, put me on the other side of the table, so to speak, but still really equally in footing and in standing. And genuinely have a discussion and be really honest about what's going to happen, set reasonable expectations, give people reasonable, outcomes and timelines, and then hopefully what ends up coming out of that is a mutual understanding and a mutual respect. And I think that as younger guys, it's hard to do that. As an older guy, it's a little easier.
There's a couple of things come to mind there. One, a modicum of success makes you really feel, you feel like you can get in there and talk to people. There's a lot of people that till you've had that, at least what you consider yourself as successful, you're always kind of second guessing yourself sometimes. And sometimes you really just have to go with the flow on that. And
even when you become successful,
you just have to be yourself, and because whenever you're operating, you're going to be most comfortable when you're yourself. And when you operate out of your comfort zone, a lot of times it comes across and people can see that, and they don't like working with people that aren't comfortable with themselves,
But there are those times where you have to step outside that comfort zone to be able to
still be comfortable with yourself.
You got to be comfortable with yourself, even though you're stepping outside.
You got to be comfortable enough with yourself to step outside of your comfort zone.
Exactly. There you go. Boom.
And one more question here. Another question.
Well, that's where you push. Yeah, well, what Doug said. That's where you push through the ceiling. That's where growth comes from.
Right. Yeah.
When you are comfortable and it's good, but then all of a sudden you bust through that. That's the next level.
And then you're comfortable again, and then you got to bust through that level again to get and keep on going. Yeah.
So Rusty wants to know, and I'm wondering if Rusty's not trying to move down there or not. He's got a lot of questions in here, but do you have water limitations or restrictions? If so, how does that impact on how you render your cleaning?
Certainly, New Zealand has had a terrible time of it. They've had some serious impacts with COVID and how COVID has been managed in New Zealand. I've got a couple of friends down there that have really found the going for their businesses really difficult in the last 18 months or 2 years. And some of that was because of the government's decision to put a blanket water restriction on because they were having, such a dry period. And Australia is the largest, driest continent on the planet.
Right.
And there are times where we will have, drought like we had only a few years ago. We have a town not far from where I live, and water was being trucked in there in the megalitres every day just to try and keep the town alive. Well, if you happen to drive out there today, it's actually underwater. And now we've got flood in certain regions because we've moved from El Nino to La Nina, which is a warm body of water in the Pacific that creates moisture, and then we get a wet summer. So that wet summer's now hitting us, and we've had probably 2 or 3 weeks of fairly inclement
So
weather.
your La Nina is a wet.
Sorry?
Is El Nino wet or is La Nina wet?
La Nina is wet. El Nino is dry.
See, El Nino for us is wet, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think
No,
That's
no,
right.
it's dry. So basically, I mean, we've always laughed about everything in Australia wants to kill you, and apparently Australia itself wants to kill you too.
Yeah,
So
pretty much. Yeah.
everything in Australia,
Well,
including Australia, wants
the
to kill
summer,
you.
the summer of 2020, when we had the fires here. I mean, I remember Ash Wednesday, which is back, I reckon it's 30 years ago now or more. And I was living in Victoria as a young guy, so that must have been nearly 40 years ago. And that at the time was just this terrible bushfire that we had that ravaged areas that had been somewhat populated. And a lot of times forest fires happen where there's not a lot of people and you dodge a bullet. But that particular fire was really dangerous and took a lot of homes. About 20 odd years later, we had a thing called Black Saturday. We had 3 days of 48 degrees in a row and a really strong wind, and a fire front started and was blowing. It was about 200 or 300 metres wide, and the wind changed 90 degrees, and it turned it into about a 3 kilometre stretch of fire that just raced through the highlands of Victoria, and it was devastating, and it was just terrible. Yeah,
that was back on that first thing where you said the 40 degrees, and I'm trying to convert the Celsius into that.
Double it at 30. Yeah, so the rule of thumb, the easy rule of thumb, double it at 30. So you're 80 and you double it at 30. So you're 80, 96, about 126, nearly 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's funny. I remember whenever we were first meeting, we're sitting there, spraying, and you're asking me, and it's where, the stereotype of the dumb American kind of comes in, where you're talking about liters and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, hell if I know. I mean, you're like, well, mate, how many liters a minute is that? And I'm like, it's 8 gallons a minute. I mean, and you could come up with those conversions just off the top of your head, and it's like, yeah, hell if I know, the liter thing. So,
well, 3.7
it wasn't drugs.
3.73 litres to the American gallon for anyone who's listening wants to know.
Say that again.
3.73 litres to the US gallon.
Yeah, it's funny, but like I said, if it wasn't for drugs, Americans would not understand the metric system whatsoever, at all. And ever you talk about differences. So you have those utes in your utility vehicles,
yes.
And the trailers that you guys have. And y'all have little, very small totes of SH. Y'all can't carry big bulk of SH. And so what is that, about a 7 or 8 gallon, or how many liters is that tank that you have?
Look, I built a system that has a 55-gallon water reservoir or a water tank, and it also has a 55-gallon SH tank. So that's 200 litres.
Okay.
55 gallons. That's about the biggest I build. There are some guys out there that have taken and used the what do they call them? The 1,000 litre, or the they call them a tote here, and they're a bigger item, But that's about the biggest that I put out as a product.
But I remember the one trailer that you had, and it had the small, like all around the edge of it, there were these small, like, I would say they'd be like 6 or 7 gallon. They were
5 gallon. Yeah, they're 5 gallon, a 20 litre drum. Okay. So about 5 gallons, 5.5 gallons, a 20 litre drum. And we built some cradles to hold the drums, and we set up a proportioner, and basically you just put the stalk into the drum and it would draw. And it was a way of being able to use drums and have them, rather than having, chlorine uncontained in a tank, particularly in and around Sydney, where some of the rules and the restrictions had been, where we didn't know what the rules and restrictions are.
What kind of rules and restrictions do y'all have on water runoff?
Well, certainly no water is allowed to go to what we call stormwater. Most developed suburbs, let's say, or town areas will have curb and guttering, and that curb and guttering has also then a stormwater pit where the stormwater from the road will run off and down and out into a stormwater mechanism that takes water either to a natural waterway or maybe a lake or something where the water will then be reused. All of most houses in Australia will have guttering, and it's something that's a bit unique to us here. A lot of guys ask me questions about the US, and they say, what do they do about, water runoff? And I said, well, you got to imagine in a lot of states, particularly in the north in America, you don't have a gutter, because if you do have a gutter, it holds the snow, and the snow rips the gutter off, so you don't have a gutter. Well, that's my understanding of it anyway.
So do you guys use recovery systems much?
No, not a lot. No, but what they'll do is they'll capture or dam that. The ruling actually suggests that what you should do is dam that water up that's running off the property, capture it, and pump it back onto the property so it can run back onto the lawn, the garden, or the garden bed.
Mm-hmm. So we got another question here. Let's see where to go. Important question here, Nick. Have you ever fought a roo?
No, but I had one. I had one as a pet for a period when I was a small boy. We had a mother roo got bowled over by a truck, and the joey was obviously going to die if somebody didn't do something. So we grabbed the joey and basically stick them in a sugar sack, and they love to live in a sugar sack because it represents the pouch that they grow up in. And we got a milk bottle and put a little teat on the end of it and fed it up. And my wife also, Kim, she also had one when she was a kid too. They rescued a roo at one point in their life. So it's not uncommon for farm kids to have had some experience with a kangaroo, but no, I never fought one, but they're characters, aren't they? They put their chests out and they stand up. Yeah. I've seen blokes in bars look sort of a lot like that, though.
Some of them things are pretty stinking muscular too. You look at them; they're just like
ripped. They're ripped, man.
You have a pet kangaroo asking for Doug. Yeah. A kilo is 2.2 pounds. I know that. Nick builds. So you got a fan here. Nick builds us money printers. Absolutely.
There you go.
Martin Wilson. Yep.
Right, Marty. Yeah, Marty's another success story. Marty started. I'm not exactly sure when Marty started, but when he and I sort of started communicating, we both had businesses that were sort of one-man shows, and he's built a fabulous business in South Australia. Highly regarded, and has built a bit of gear from us, which we helped him build a really unique system that had the proportioner and some 12-volt outfits and some really nice Titan reels on there. So one of Marty's rigs looks about as American rigs look. So he's pretty shiny and fancy, Marty. He's a great guy.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love the patch on your right shoulder, by the way.
That one?
Yeah, that one there.
I was saying before I came on, not too many people would have one of these shirts. This is actually one of Tim's personal shirts that I stole out of his bag on one of his.
He was looking for that the other day. He was.
I must confess, he did give it to me, but I like to tell people I stole it off.
Yeah. But, so here's a question, and I could be starting some crap here. So in Australia, do you have the same propensity as we do in America for people to just copy ideas? Like, let's say if Nick Hopkins with SoftWash Australia developed a watermelon flavored colored soap that smelled like watermelons, and changed colors whenever it came in contact with bleach, would other companies then rush to go and make a watermelon flavored soap, or would they consider making something like an orange flavored soap or a kiwi flavored soap as opposed to the direct copy of a watermelon flavored soap?
Got to be a bit careful here because I may have a fragrance that smells a little bit like apples and might coming out very shortly. So discussions have been had. But look, I think that, people are people the world over. And, when you've got a good idea, I suppose the greatest compliment you can get is mimicry and, someone wanting to copy what you do. And I we jokingly talking about Timmy, but the invention of the proportioner and adding that idea to what we're doing, I mean, absolute no-brainer.
Right.
There are cheaper and easier ways, or not easier, but there are cheaper.
It's certainly not easy.
Ways of doing it. But, you could go and buy a Lada Neva, or you can buy a Corvette Stingray. Well, what do you want to drive?
Mm-hmm.
It's just as simple as that. And
it's funny. People talk about the problems they have with their knockoff proportioners, and they talk about, you're paying $600 for a shiny box, because I could build all this other stuff for $500. And it's like, you understand that shiny box is also a rigid fixture that keeps it from whenever you drive down the road and the hose is shaking off and the barbs from breaking as whenever you hit a bump and doing stuff like that. So that shiny box serves a lot bigger purpose than just being a $600 add-on to that whole,
And that's why you see proportioners 5-6 years down the road
that are still working,
going strong, never a problem. That's me. I mean, all the proportioners I had, the only time I really had, I think I had one where I had the soap line cracked inside of it. But we've gotten debris from the way we do things, not a fault of the proportioner, but from the way we used our drop tubes and all. Other than that, I mean, I see guys posting about problems they had and whatever, and it turns out almost all of those are a knockoff. We just never had problems, and we had a lot of proportioners.
About the only problem you'll ever have is the check valve. In fact, I threw this out here because the video popped up in Spray Wash Academy today. It was a 2-year-old video, but you'll have a check valve go bad every now and then. And ironically, Power Wash Store will go and rebuild your proportioners, for you. But that's where you can just put an inline check valve in there whenever you have a check valve go bad, and boom, it'll get you another couple of years down the road before this thing craps out on you. So
that's right. Yep.
Here's a couple. Oh, Jason wants to know when you're visiting the States again. Well, we're actually working on that with me and Tanya and Kim and Nick. So right now, so trying to figure out a little vacation time.
I keep telling you, you just got to do the extra miles and get on down here, man.
I'd love to. But y'all are going to quarantine my butt for 2 weeks.
No. We'll sort that out.
Make me fight a kangaroo.
Surely I know someone.
This Nick guy talks funny, but I like him. Look at the Chinese. They copy everything. I only trust Power Wash Store proportioners. Have 5 real proportioners. Have only rebuilt 1 check valve.
Check
valve. I mean, here's a little special thing a lot of people don't know about the check valve, about the Power Wash Store proportioner, is that if you've got a knockoff proportioner, chances are your check valve doesn't have these male ends on there. They have female ends. So this is a special built product right here. So if you're using this with the females, that's actually giving you another failure point right in there, because you're having to do a close nipple threaded into there and there to get into the other part of the block. So
they don't have a Hastelloy spring either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no Hastelloy springs. We're not having those things custom made either. But yeah, most check valves that you go out or buy from Daltmeyer or wherever are going to be not males, but females. And that's just a little extra thing that, whenever you order a couple of thousand at a time.
And if you ever want to know, this one here is a bleach valve.
Yeah.
So if you ever, I don't know if it can show you. You're not going to see. So if it's blue on the inside, it's a water. If it's black on the inside, it's bleach.
Yep. And that has the Hastelloy spring. So somebody said, whenever you come, make sure you bring your guitar. And Tanya says, we want to quarantine with you guys whenever we come down.
Jeez, I tell you what, we'd have to line up a couple of new livers.
In Australia for us to do that? We would.
2 weeks.
Sorry, check liver.
2 weeks lucky there, we'd drink too much grog, and we'd have to get new livers, I reckon.
Get some of that damn Bundy.
That's it. Yeah. Make an emu fighter, make a sparrow fight an emu. That stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody.
I did quick shout out, Ray. Don't know if you know, but happy birthday, Jason Hens.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was Jay. In fact, I sent him a Facebook thing that said happy birthday. So it's negative 12.12 Celsius in Wisconsin or 10 Fahrenheit today. Is that Nick?
Wow.
God bless you.
Putting that in there.
That's horrible. That's
Wisconsin. Was that?
I went visited. I had the chance to go and spend some time with Paul there a couple of years ago, and I think it was minus 20 one night. And I don't think I've ever been anywhere that's been minus 20 before in my life, and it was just unbelievable. And we got up at some ungodly hour and hopped in his car, and he put some contraption on the front of his truck, and we went and drove up and down.
Wow, yeah.
Get rid of snow, and I was like, when did this start happening? I was just so amazed that, living down here, you don't see any of that. I mean, very rare you would see snow in Australia unless you're in the highlands and you're really looking for it. It just really doesn't happen that much.
We lost Steve Hill in a snowbank once.
Was the snowbank was taller?
Yeah, so it was a 2-foot snowbank. So when we went and Paul and me and Paul and Tim did the sanitation trip this year and went to all the locations and taught that. I mean, it was crazy because we went from, Milwaukee all the way across over to Iowa, then back to Pennsylvania. And me being a Southern boy, I mean, one of the reasons you came to Tallahassee because we're in similar climates.
Absolutely.
We went through like 8 states without seeing no snow. I mean, it was just a solid blanket of snow in February from Iowa all the way to Pennsylvania. And that was just insanity to me.
Not something we're used to here, I can tell
you. No, not at all.
Dry as a chip, mate. It is dry as a chip most of the time. We are enjoying a little bit of wet here, but not a lot of it's fallen where we want it needed in the catchment areas. Mm-hmm. Our water, there was a mention earlier on about water restrictions here in Australia, and certainly when the water management, gets to a certain percentage, then the local government will say, well, no, we're going to enact Act 1 of the water restriction.
Right.
And that might be that you're not allowed to use a garden sprinkler, or you're not allowed to wash your car on the road. You've got to wash it on your lawn. Mm-hmm. And then the next level might be, well, hey, you can't wash your car. You can only take it to a car wash, and those sorts of things. So, they do ramp those up, and they're on a bit of a sliding scale, but that'll happen invariably. Probably won't happen this year because we've got that weather La Nina, which is happening at the moment. So we're expecting to be quite wet, but no cyclones, or not as severe cyclones as we normally have. When we have El Nino, we get a drier environment, and the water temperature comes up.
Is wetter.
And that's when we get the cyclones. So cyclones, you call a tornado.
I could be wrong.
So a cyclone is a tornado.
Yeah. So a wind that
a cyclone.
That's a typhoon.
Oh,
what do y'all call a hurricane?
Just a big wind. Yeah, we don't get a lot of hurricane. I don't know.
I thought a cyclone was a hurricane.
Well, tropical cyclone, but he just said their cyclone is what we call a tornado.
Maybe it's a hurricane. A really big low pressure weather system that is.
That's a hurricane.
That's a hurricane.
That's a hurricane. Okay, so your hurricane, same as your hurricane, is our cyclone.
Again, tropical cyclone. Yeah, yep.
Cyclone. Yeah. So
what would you say? Go ahead.
We would get them usually later in the summer, so March, April, sort of, or February, March usually. We have had them a bit earlier, but we usually get them later in the year. And the water temperature, as I understand it, has to be at least 26 degrees for it to create a cyclone.
So you know the United States market a little bit. I mean, I would say because you come here. What would you say is the biggest difference washing wise between the United States and Australia? And so what's the biggest difference and what's the biggest similarity?
I think the biggest difference would be the preconditioning, soft washing particularly, and generally exterior cleaning. I think in Australia is fairly new. Obviously, there's been people doing it for a long time, and I know guys that have been house washing for many, many years, just quietly going along, doing soft washing, and they never called it soft washing. They never bothered to change it. They just did what they did, and they made great money. And now, you know, they're the guys that are saying, geez, it's got busy all of a sudden, and there's a lot more people doing it. Why is all that? And that's because somebody called it soft washing, and people decided to market it, and it's become a bit flavoursome, I suppose. There's a lot of people who have worked in, you know, what's happened with the COVID, and before that, even with the global crisis that I know Ray, you know, was part of the motivation for you to get into the washing industry, is that, you know, people go through certain uncertainty. They might lose their job, or they get stood down for a period, or and they feel as though they don't have control of their own existence, or those thoughts that we've had about how things are get challenged, and all of a sudden it's like, well, hang on a minute, I'm going to go and do something for myself. And so I think there's been a lot of people wanting to climb into, whether it be not necessarily the cleaning industry, but those sorts of businesses, service businesses. There's been a lot more interest. But I think the American market is certainly got a bigger appetite for it, and it's more preconditioned, and the Australian market is yet quite immature, but it is getting there. 4 or 5 years ago, when we held our first little SoftWash Australia get-together, I remember saying specifically on that day that I'll know that we're on the right path when the phone rings and someone says, I'd like to have my house soft washed. Right. Well, are you the guys that do soft washing? Now, that's happening readily now. It's happening quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So we've really seen that market awareness happen, and we've really seen the word soft wash get into the vernacular, and that was always part of the challenge. So mm-hmm. I'd say that's certainly one of the differences. At the end of the day, what's quite common, I think, is the pricing. I know that you talk to me, and we talk sometimes about, you know, monetizing and where the values are. And I suppose if you exchange your currency into my currency, that for most things off the shelf or for a service provided or what have you, our pricing is somewhat the same. You know, you talk about a guy needing to make a couple of $100 a year out of a vehicle for it to be a sustainable thing. Well, if you turn that into Australian dollars, that's probably somewhere between $250,000 to $300,000 a year. And if you're putting a couple of guys in a vehicle and sending them out to go and do work, you've probably got to be looking for $1,000 a day return to make that a viable business model that you can duplicate and turn into a bigger thing if you want to. And Dougie said something really interesting that I really liked was, if that's what you want. Yeah. So whilst we're all really competitive and we all want to, you know, be the guy that everyone's talking about, oh, he's got a killer business, and, you know, everyone wants to pat you on the back, and you got the best Facebook posts and you're just the man. But if you're happy working 3 or 4 days a week, going fishing, playing golf, and just cruising around and getting enough on the table to have a sustainable lifetime, and that's what you want, and if that's your measure of success, man, you're
you're only answerable to yourself in a lot of ways. You know, they say that. Yeah, they say that success, success in business is a lot like pregnancy. Everybody congratulates you on the results, but most people have no idea how many times you got screwed or how many awkward positions you got put in to achieve those results,
Yep, that's up there.
Yep. It's very true.
The only person that can measure your success is you.
Right.
I mean, that's all there is to it.
There's a lot of people that and I don't mean this in any negative way, towards them. I don't think less of them at all, because there's very few people out there that ever wanted to do what I did, and then especially then have a spouse. And I was very lucky, and you are too, and to have a spouse that could understand and work with them. I mean, Doug's spouse was smart, and does something. She stayed away from the business, but it's tough, man. I mean, and in a lot of ways, I was very maladjusted, and I missed a lot of ball games with my daughters, and missed a lot of stuff. And Tanya even had a post this weekend on the Facebook and said, hey, wow, it's just kind of cool. I'm getting to spend weekends with my husband again, and we had brunch like a normal family, and we weren't even on vacation this weekend. It's kind of cool, but that was the path that we chose. And that was what, we really felt God kind of led us to, for us to do in that respect. Yeah. And it's what we want to do, but there's a lot of people that wouldn't want to do that would hate that couldn't stand that kind of life.
You know what they're called? What? Employees.
That's true. But yeah.
Mr. Los is in the house.
Carlos, how are you, sir? Hope you are doing well tonight.
Hey, Los.
Mr. EBC himself.
EBC himself. I'll tell you, I mean, I just love Los. I mean, I guess that's all there is to it.
Good guy.
Yep. And you notice that, like, Nick has a lot of respect for Los. Los has a lot of respect for Nick, and same thing with it just escaped me. I had a really good thought going there, and it's just when you get older, these things happen, and
there's a lot of these guys. This is one of the things. I mean, I would definitely say Carlos, has been around long enough to see this. We've seen so many new guys come and go in the industry. I don't mean new guys. I don't mean, new guys in the industry, but I mean, we see guys that come in are contrary and argumentative and not, but the ones that want to help, the ones that actually care about their fellow person, the ones that aren't in it for a quick hit and a quick buck. Those are the guys that you're seeing that have been in this business for 10, 20 years or so. These are the people that whenever I started researching, years ago and that are still around. Carlos was there back in those days, I mean, that you realize that, and how many people have the three of us seen come and go on Facebook and on these forums, and it's like, well, where are they now? And it's funny because you might sometimes, look them up, and they're either one doing the same thing that they've done, the same production level that they've done. They're still cantankerous as hell. They're still arguing with strangers for the fun of it. Or two, they're out of this industry whatsoever, and so
and not having sold a successful company.
Yeah, exactly.
They just
shut down. Or they sold, and what they sold was the value of some used, busted ass equipment.
Yeah.
I think it becomes a mind of servitude and wanting to help your fellow person and wanting to see them succeed.
And that's where I guess for me I go with Carlos too. Is that Carlos started off as a washer. I mean, well, actually, let's go back even further. He was a fireman originally, or an EMT or whatever it was that he was.
He was in the Navy.
Yeah, he was in the Navy. Yeah. That was even before that. But anyhow, my point, I guess, is that he built EBC from the ground up, and he has supported the industry, and he has. First of all, he puts out a good product. But secondly, he really has supported the industry. He stays out of the drama and all that kind of stuff, and he helps people. And to me, that's what I like about Carlos.
Yeah.
Other than that, he puts out a good product.
Yeah.
As Carlos would say, I just sell
he's
soap.
a
Damn
very
good soap, but I sell soap.
yeah. Look, he's a really easy guy to like, and he's also, you know, he's a loyal kind of guy. You'll be straight with him. He'll be straight with you. And I've, you know, seen him, you know, hold court for not just one day, but 2 days on some of the training stuff that he's done over the years. And certainly he was instrumental in, you know, putting together the first of those associations, names which we shall never speak of again. Right back in the day, he was a founding father of all of that stuff. And, you know, and today continues to support the industry and puts out a great product. And, you know, we sell a ton of the stuff down here in Australia, and it's been, you know, it's so well received. It's something you can rely on. It's just like sunshine. It comes out and does its job, and it's got so many positive factors as a product. And then, you know, any time or any chance you've got to ask the man to step up and give you a hand to promote something, you know, he's the first guy there doing it. So yeah, he's a brother. So g'day, mate. There you go.
Speaking of that, I've got another one of your three amigos who's messaging me. I'm not being rude, looking at my phone, but Paul's saying, "Hey, why haven't you mentioned our comments?" And I said, I haven't seen any of Paul Cassandra's comments on here. So
yeah, he'd be showing up as Facebook user.
Yeah, maybe he's showing up as Peyton, but I didn't know that was Paul. If that is so,
well, that's what I said earlier. I think that's Paul.
Oh, okay, I got you. So maybe yes.
We've said this on almost every single time. I mean, a lot of times when we do these lives, number one, we don't see all of the comments, and number two, some of the comments that we see say Facebook.
Oh, there it goes. Look, now all of a sudden,
yeah.
Paul, boom. You need to be on my feed, not Doug's. Okay, well, there you are.
Is that what it is?
Maybe so.
So if I would have been watching from my side, no, it doesn't make sense.
So now Paul is texting me some crazy pics. So no, great. We've got people sitting there taking pictures, and yeah, it's kind of scary. Kind of scary.
I don't want to know. I think you guys just keep it to yourselves, and you know.
And Steve said hi. Don't lose him in a snowbank. Don't lose Steve in a snowbank.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, Paul, hi.
I want to actually while we got Paul on here, and it's a good time to talk about this. So remember, also we mentioned this earlier, but the vendor showcase, you know, again where you keynoted that year, the vendor showcase is coming back up. Very, very soon here. And
January 10th and 11th.
10th and 11th, Orlando, Florida. And I mean, what an amazing time. We're actually going to be getting some flyers out on here. You can register at powerwashstore.com. We've got the guy that wrote Profit First, Mike Michaelowitz. He's going to be the keynote speaker there. The guy that wrote one of the, do you need to be there?
That's what I'm asking.
Oh. Yes, you need to be there. You know, the guy that wrote Profit. Oh, are you playing poker instead?
That's what
I got you. So, and you know, some of the things we're going to do. I mean, and this is what's cool about the vendor showcase is versus guys, you know, where we've been to so many of these things, and they might say, okay, so Ray, teach us, you know, about a pressure gun, you know, teach us about a pressure washer. And I've got things that I'm really good at, but I can teach on. I've got other stuff that I might not be so good at. And I've taught stuff times that I'm not so good at. But now with Paul bringing together the vendors to teach, you actually have a guy from, you know, you'd have a guy from a pressure washing, from Udor. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Udor pumps. Okay. How about a manufacturer's rep from Udor teaching about Udor pumps? You know, how about, you know, Gavin talking about water-fed pole systems and pure water systems.
That's why it's called the vendor showcase.
Yeah. How about Suttner talking about pressure washing guns on there versus just me, who might not understand the internals about it, but you actually get the manufacturers who build them and sell them for a living. you know.
You might even have that one guy that kind of makes something that, Tim something.
Tim guy, Tim.
Ass.
Yeah, Tim the ass. Yeah.
Mayor of Destin Harbour.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim may go and talk. He knows a little something about the proportioner.
I think more importantly that if you talk about what Paul's actually achieved here and what he does, it speaks volumes about the confidence and the type of guy Paul is and the way that he does business. In that he's inviting the fox into the hen house.
Uh-huh.
What he does by bringing the vendor to the table is inviting the fox in the hen house.
Yeah.
But he has such a good relationship with those people, and they know where they stand with him, and he knows where he stands with them, that he can say to them, please come in, show the people who, support my business and give them the first-hand knowledge. You be the guys you really tell them about what it is. What are the highlight pieces of any item, whether it be Steel Eagle reels or a surface cleaner, or whether it be Titan, whether it be Honda motors, what have you. Now, there's obviously everyone at some point wants to go around the back door and go and say to the guy at Honda, can't you get me one of these, $1,000?
Tell me what it costs.
You know what I mean? And they don't entertain that. They know where their bread's buttered, and they know that that's the relationship and the depth of relationship that Paul has with those people. And I think it's unique that he does it. It was a pleasure to go down there and work with him and do it a few years ago, and he continues to do it. And I think that the guy that he's invited in to speak, what's his name, Mike Kauskowitz or something?
Mike Lewitz.
Michaelwitz.
Probably first, and then he had one, the pumpkin principle, and right. I mean, he has a brand new one that's called Be Different, about differentiating yourself in marketing. Incredible. I mean, I promise you, he's not cheap. I mean, this isn't he
like Paul.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Vaughn is coming and teaching there. Yeah.
Nick caught that.
Yeah, he's not cheap like Paul. Yeah. And I like that white beard. So I'm assuming we're talking about me.
Tim. No, we're talking about Tim. Tim is white beard.
But see, Tim, I just saw Tim, and Tim now is white goatee because Tim no longer has the beard. So, yep.
That thing stood out like a sore thumb.
It really did. And you're right, Tanya. It is always a great show. Fix This Next is one of his books. Karcher's a 900-pound gorilla in the cleaning industry. Yeah, especially overseas. Maybe not America so much, but they are a beast of a company.
Karcher?
Karcher, yeah.
Yeah, Karcher's, is it part of the Nilfisk group?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so Nilfisk have got quite a lot of product in the range. Yeah. Are they Hydrotech also?
Paul is Nilfisk and Karcher. Are they also Hydrotech? Maybe you could chime in on that. So, because now Paul's is going literally, he's going from Facebook user to Paul Cassander. I'm not quite sure why he's because that was his comment here of what's for Breaky in 2017, Nick. So,
yeah. Bacon eggs.
And he says no, so they are not. They are not the same, all one and the same. But the Nilfisk, when we went to World of Concrete last year, that was 2020, because they shut the world down right after we got back from World of Concrete in February.
Sure.
I was amazed at how much Nilfisk made, because they had pressure washers, they had
all kinds of
concrete finishing machines, they had
they didn't have a cyclone because they had sold that division.
Yep.
If I remember correctly.
Here we go. So Karcher, Hotsy, Landa, Shark, Spraymart.
Spraymart, yeah.
So that's all part of that group.
Yeah, well, it sure is a little difficult to get stuff out of LA at the moment. We're shipping, we're trying to ship stuff out of Power Wash Store and other places, and it's just it's a nightmare. So on what's been, difficult for even, the likes of Paul to keep and get stock, and keep it on the floor.
Well, I would say the benefit that Paul, with Power Wash Store, and I don't know if y'all picked up on that subtle little I had there. We're able to order in such bulk that the supply chain has been kind of good for the Power Wash Store thing, franchises and company store, because Paul's able to order where Fred's Power Wash part supplies. They're not necessarily real high up on the pecking order, but whenever Paul's dropping millions of dollars a year on stock orders, he gets the attention of people a little bit better.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, since a lot of your stuff comes out of China, I would figure you'd just be right around the corner. Grab a boat up there, Nick. Yeah. I mean, you're like a day's travel, right?
Yeah, well, I used to do a lot of travel up into China. I've been up to China probably anywhere between 10 or 15 times in a previous life with the scrap metal business. And it's an interesting place. It's huge. It is just phenomenally huge. Everything's big. But I found that about the States too. I thought everything was big in the States. So when you come from little old Australia down here,
coming from a very large guy, and you're calling everything big. That's
yeah. Well, it's big to me.
Love it,
gentlemen. I hate to depart.
It's time.
No, you're actually at work still. I mean, you're.
I am at work. I've got to get back to the grind, and we've got some skids being manufactured, and we're trying to get some more parts off Paul. So I'll be talking to Paul soon enough.
Remember, send us those lottery numbers.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, he's in the future. Nick is
in Tuesday.
It's Tuesday at now 12:21 p.m., but it is 1963. So
somebody's saying Merry Christmas, Nick.
And to you.
Oh, that could be Paul still. We have no idea.
And before I go, I just want to say thanks very much for the invite, Ray and Dougie. Always fun to chat.
Always a pleasure to have you.
I don't know whether we covered anything for anyone of any real substance, but
I think so. I mean,
it's been an absolute pleasure to jump in and say good day anytime. I'd love to come back and talk more to you, but I don't know if anyone wants to listen to me waffle.
Oh, absolutely, they do. And Nick, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I know it's a big sacrifice and the scheduling nightmare and all. We appreciate it. And hey, go out and throw another shrimp on the Bobby.
Yeah. Thanks,
I hate Paul Hogan.
We love Hags. Hags a ripper. I got to leave you with a joke before I go.
All right.
So a guy walks into the kitchen. He says to his wife, and he said, some stranger's going, and he said, the spring onions in the fridge, they're talking, they're singing the Bee Gees. And the wife says, don't be stupid. It's just the chives talking.
and he laughed.
He fails out.
Nice. Bravo, Nick.
That was awesome.
Bravo. That was amazing. That was a class exit.
That's probably the best exit we've ever had.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was by far the best exit.
100%. Oh, yeah. That was amazing.
Definitely love Nick.
Yeah, Nick is good people. For those of y'all that don't know Nick, Nick is good
SoftWash Australia.
SoftWash Australia. Look him up, softwashaustralia.com. If you're Australia, New Zealand, that side of the world, and he can take good care of you. So,
except that he sold his SoftWash company.
Well, but he could if you have a SoftWash company, and he can still.
Well, he can supply now, though.
That's right.
That's it. He
is Australia's largest SoftWash supplier.
There you go. That's awesome.
There it is. He's their only SoftWash supplier.
Supplier. Hey, that works.
Oh, guys. Well, y'all have wasted another hour and a half of your precious time. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate guys who are members of Pro and the Academy. Let's see here. Jump back and forth. Facebook user at the end, even though it's Paul talking to me. Yeah, Paul, I don't know. I just don't know why you were Facebook user and Paul. I don't understand it. So
not only that, but I mean, again, we some of the comments we just never see. I don't know what platform they're on that we don't see them, but we've had that complaint before. How come you don't mention me? And it's not that we're doing that intentionally or unintentionally. It's just we don't see it.
Alan Paul, thank you for your time. Rusty, absolutely. An oil can. That is a Foster's. Luke's talking about horrible traffic in Tampa. Is traffic ever good in Tampa, though? That's a traffic bad spot. So,
and I gotta say, I mean, Tanya put in that comment earlier, and we didn't spend much time on it, but it definitely meant a lot. It's too far up there, and Tanya, I don't remember what you said now, but it was something about what the heck did she say?
I never listened to her.
I don't know. Give me that.
Well, here. Okay.
I'm gonna scroll up, see if I can find it, because I want to end it with that.
Here.
I'm gonna do it. Just get out of the way. I want to end the show with what Tanya said earlier, if I can find it.
No. I think it's lower down. I think it's lower.
You think it's lower?
Because I saw some Tanya's. Doug, Steve said hi. Oh, okay, I'm not.
No, it's up there. You're just always wrong.
See, it doesn't go. Oh, yeah, usually sell like you don't.
Yeah,
need them.
I like this. Okay, so sell like you don't need the money, and that I think one of the things I want to take away from this whole deal with Nick, it wasn't that there was no pre-conversation about it as to what he would say and what he wouldn't say. And if you notice, he said the exact same things that we say all the time about building relationships, about treating your customers like family, kind of, so to speak, and just the different things that we run into. And here's one of the things: sell like you don't need the money, because that is, if you do that, the business is going to come. When you're sitting there and you're in front of that person and you need that money, you're selling as you need the money. I got to have this job. I got to have this job. And that is portrayed to those people. Sell it like you don't need the money, and you'd be surprised at how much you can sell higher price tag wise.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
Were you going to do something there?
I was, but
do it.
No, it's fine. It's all good.
All right. We appreciate y'all.
Guys, thank y'all so much. Oh, I know what I was looking at. The Luke, absolutely always fun. Thank you, Alan. Tanya, love you. See you in a little bit. And hey, good night, guys. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.